antidote to what? The poison you just took, Dr. Jones. Yeah. It's Temple of Doom, one of the most underrated films of the 80s. And I know people have issues with this film, but I am a massive fan of this. Massive fan. I mean, this is, to me, Temple of Doom is to Indiana Jones what Return of the Jedi is to Star Wars for me. Like, you know, it's not as good a film as the other two. There's no doubt about it. Raiders and Last Crusade are ostensibly better movies.
Yeah.
But this might be the most fun. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of torture. There's a bit of racism. It's like Return of the Jedi's got Ewoks. Temple of Doom's got a little bit of racism. But other than those, it's a super fun movie.
Well,
so are you a fan, having gone back and watched it again?
I am a fan, yeah. I will begin with, this is the Hey You Guys podcast. We're your hosts, Liam and Wes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we should probably go with that as well. Sorry, too busy with my terrible quotes.
No. We'll do the quick introduction and we'll go straight into it. And can I say, I'm a fan of Indiana Jones films. I'll put that
I think that's fair. I don't think that's a wild statement, in fairness. I don't think you're putting your neck out by saying, I like Indiana Jones films. It's like, oh, guys, listen, I've got something I want to admit. I really like vanilla ice cream. It's just one of those things I like. It's just one of my weird little quirks, you know?
I will say Temple of Doom is definitely better than Crystal Skull.
Well, that's the thing with, if we're going to rate these films, don't get me wrong, I agree with everyone else. Raiders is the best. Well, you can make an argument between Raiders and Last Crusade. I think Raiders is the best, closely followed by Last Crusade. Now, I think a lot of people go numerous steps down the road and then plonk Temple of Doom down there. Like Return of the Jedi, I have this much closer to the other two. It's not as good as the other two films, but I really like this film. Like when I was growing up in particular, and again, I keep coming back to Return of the Jedi as a comparison, is that I think because they were fun and they had those great set pieces, because I watched these films when I was like 5-6 years old.
Yeah. That's
what I really picked up on. So I always have this so much closer to the first two. And I mentioned it last week. I don't hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls.
Well, randomly,
I think there are good. There are 3.5 good Indiana Jones films. If you cut out the jungle shit from Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, I think that's an okay film.
Look, let's just concentrate on the first three for a minute because we can talk about
fair enough.
Till the cows come home.
Or maybe just don't talk about it.
Just don't talk about it. As much as I prefer the other two, this is the film I watched most of as a kid. Mm-hmm. The reason being is this is the only one I had on VHS.
Oh, fair. It's strange, isn't it, when you're younger, that becomes the reason. This is the only one I had recorded off TV or some weird shit like that.
So I had this one on VHS, like a proper copy of it, and the other ones I would catch they were usually Christmas or New Year's films.
Yeah.
So they were the ones I would watch most of.
Just out of interest then, so do you have the same order? Do you have it Raiders, Last Crusade, and then Temple?
I don't know. I think I prefer Last Crusade over Raiders.
I don't think that's an outrageous comment now.
They're so interchangeable, those films. Those two films, they have a scene where rescue something. There was a convoy on both of those two films where Indiana Jones had to go onto the convoy. Do you know what I mean? They're quite interchangeable. Right? Yeah,
they've got a similar look. There's the Nazis, the bad guys.
Well, I think it's
the Christian
more
religious artifact.
I think the third one is more established and more grandeur. For me, it's the third one over the first one, and then Temple of Doom. And again, I am not going to blow as much hot air into Temple of Doom as you. I can see that already. But
blow hot air, yeah. Oh, it's coming. It was coming.
I'll say again. I am not going to suck Temple of Doom's dick as much as you. I am a fan.
Well, that's an interesting way of putting it, but yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't mind it, but George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were going down some sort of dark path with this film.
Well, they were going down when they both getting divorced. Wasn't that the thing?
There was something going on in their
I'm sure they were both getting divorced, and they've since said that they were both in like really dark mindsets because of the divorces they were going through. And that kind of led into them. Oh, you can 100% see it. But saying that, when I watch this film now, I split it into 4 parts.
Sorry about that. We just had a bit of technical difficulty there. I lost you, mate, after you said about 4 acts. So you said this film is split into 4 acts?
Yeah, well, that's how I've kind of split it out in my head. It's like, when we think of this film, we think of it as being like a super dark movie. But it's like for the first 50 minutes, you get like the first 2 acts, what I think of as like the club scene and the subsequent chase. And then after that, the kind of introduction to India. And all that stuff is actually pretty fun. And that's, as I said, the first 50 minutes of the film. But then for 40 minutes then, it becomes a bizarrely dark cult horror film. And it is dark as fuck. And I'm not sure if you've watched the new cut of this film. or if you're watching an older version on DVD. But there is some like unbelievable stuff in this film, which we'll get to later. But then once you get past, saving all the kids and stuff, it's like the last 30 minutes then is actually like a super fun roller coaster ride in the most literal sense, in that it's actually a fucking roller coaster.
And they actually recorded roller coaster sounds for that.
Yeah, from Disney. Yeah. They went to Disney Park and recorded the sounds of the roller coaster, which is, I keep calling it a roller coaster. I mean, it's a kart battle, right?
Mine kart, battle.
Yeah, mine kart, yeah. But yeah, that's the last 30 minutes of the film, and it's super exciting, and it's just non-stop set piece after set piece. So I would actually say that most of this film isn't actually super dark. It's just got 40 minutes of outrageously dark material in what is otherwise a pretty family-friendly movie.
Which we will get to, but I like that you split it into 4 acts. Because, can we talk about the club scene?
The club scene's amazing. The club scene is amazing. I love it. I mean, obviously, when you think of Indiana Jones, you think of intros, you think of the Boulder scene from Raiders, and I'm not sure anyone's topping that. But in terms of going, okay, we can't top that, let's do something completely different. Like doing a dance movie, like a 40s or 50s Busby Berkeley film, or, I mean, when I see it, I think of stuff like, have you ever seen the ballroom scene from The Red Shoes? It's a 50s film. It's unbelievable. It's trippy as fuck. If you get a chance, The Red Shoes is an amazing film. Or there's like a famous, it's like Pick Yourself Up is a Fred Astaire number from Swing Time. It's very much that kind of mid-century big music number, which was popular in the kind of golden era of Hollywood cinema. And they absolutely nail it. And of course, it looks amazing. But the song's fantastic.
I've got it written down that these are the best credits in history. Because
without question.
They just feel like Willie Scott comes out and then you've got that song, and obviously they're doing a Chinese part, and it's just anything goes.
I love it.
Just the dance around and everything. But
even right from the intro, like the fade in it's another great indie fade in, like where the Paramount Mountain is on the gong at the start, and it kind of like that's a great intro.
Oh my god, that gong! The way he hit that gong.
Oh yeah, he smashes it, and he's a big guy. He sticks around for a long time.
It's kind of a mix of an overhead from the sides, like he's getting no purchase on this gong. Just the way it looks so awkward, the way he hit it.
Well, I think of him as being like, like if you're a tambourine player in a band. It's like, all right, I can't just tambourine. I've got to rub some stank on this to get noticed. So this guy's like, I'm the fucking gong guy. Like there's all this huge musical number, there's balloons, there's all kinds of shit going on, and I'm just the gong guy. So he's like, I'm going to gong the shit out of this. And fair play to him, he does.
Tell me you noticed the name of the club.
Oh, Obi-Wan Kenobi Club. Or the Obi-Wan Club.
Club Obi-Wan. Yeah.
Club Obi-Wan. Sorry, I got the wrong way around. Well, actually, one of our listeners, or one of the guys I asked, I kind of put out a question before the podcast, is what people, want us to bring up or questions they had. And he actually said, and I'm going to get his name now, and I will bring him up again later, because Robert Baum, he said, isn't it strange, even though it's a Star Wars thing, that you've got a Japanese sounding name in Shanghai in the 30s? But I was like, it's not, if you take away the Star Wars reference, it's not that weird, because Shanghai's a port city. It's like if you go, I mean, I'm lucky enough to have been to Shanghai. It's actually got tons of European architecture. It's got a real kind of worldly vibe. So I think having a club which sounds slightly Japanese, I know obviously they have their history at that time.
Yeah.
But, it's not completely outrageous. But yeah, it is a cool little nod. And there's loads of little Star Wars nods in this film, especially with the sound effects. But we'll get to that later as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of Star Wars sound effects that we hear throughout this film. So they have their number, they run off.
And it's a great number.
And as they run off, then our hero walks in, you just see him from, the camera pans up from his legs, you see him, Indiana Jones. He's the only guy I know as well wearing white in that whole place. Yeah,
it's weird. You're saying Indiana Jones, and it's not something I'd noticed before, but watching it again, I was like, dude, that's James Bond.
Yeah.
Like, the whole thing about Indiana Jones was that Spielberg wanted to do a James Bond film, but Lucas said, don't worry about James Bond. I've got this new character. And obviously he created Indiana Jones. He convinced him to do that instead. Like, that is clearly a James Bond, like short of sitting down and having a cigarette. I mean, it's such a James Bond moment. Like, the suit is classic Bond as far as I'm concerned.
The whole thing about it as well, where he sat opposite the evil people, let's say. You know what I mean?
Lao She spoons. I love that scene.
The banter and everything they've got, and then as you've already covered it in the introduction, the antidote for the poison you just drank.
Oh, it's great, and
I like that.
Like the diamond thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I say I'd like that little banter. That's exactly what I was going to say. That little banter that they had, and then the tense moment where are doing the lazy Susan, and they're moving the diamond, as you just said, to one.
Lazy
to the
Susan?
Other.
The fuck's a lazy Susan?
That thing that turns in the middle. That's a lazy Susan.
Oh, I just thought of it as like a traditional kind of Chinese dining table. Is that what they're called?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but no, I've always known them as lazy Susans. If there's something in the middle of the table that turns, it's a lazy Susan.
I can't imagine Chinese people calling it a lazy Susan. You might be right. I mean, I'm used to seeing them in like, you know, traditional Chinese restaurants where, you know, you all share meals. You get like 6 meals and you spin the table around and you all take a bit of everything. Obviously, in this instance, they're taking, you know, a diamond and ansto and stuff. But I love the music they use as well. Like those little audio cues as they spin it around. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, I've never heard of lazy Susan.
A lazy Susan is a turntable placed on a table or countertop to aid in distributing food. Lazy Susans may be made from a variety of materials, but are usually glass, wood, or plastic. In Chinese, they are known as Chinese words. Dinner table.
Good effort. All right, fair play.
Lazy Susans, yeah.
Well, Lazy Susans aside, there's a lot of interesting stuff in this. I mean, obviously, with the ansto and the diamond and the back and forth and the double crosses, it all goes off the rails pretty quickly. And the first thing, I mean, this is when you know this film's for real. The first thing that Indiana Jones does is get up and punch a woman in the face. It's just
I had that written down as well. He clocked that cigarette-selling lady straight in the nose.
Oh, I did. And I do love that look, that aesthetic of like, you know, you think it's, well, I think of it as obviously a very American thing. Like, I think of like at the baseball, when they have them around their shoulders and they've got like a cart in front of them, they're selling like beers or hot dogs or something. Only she's selling cigarettes. But yeah, of course, the more memorable fact is the one that she got absolutely clocked by Indy. It's like a classic Western scene, isn't it?
After he clocks her, Roy Orbison grabs him.
Oh, yeah, he does. He really does.
That dude is Roy Orbison.
He looks so much like Roy Orbison. I'm not sure what he's doing there.
The sideburns.
Yeah, he looks the part.
He just wanted to do a film, so they thought, "Come on, Roy, just do a scene." Like,
was he playing the piano beforehand? Before he went through,
I noticed because he was a goon. Like he was meant to be one of the Chinese goons, but that dude.
But he's not very Chinese. Oh, he's white as fuck. Well, I'll give it to the band. While all this is going off, they're like the band from the Titanic. It's like there's gunshots going off, the whole works. The band just keeps playing. If anything, the band takes it up a notch and like play faster in line with all the fighting. It's like, it's the same with the Gong dude. The Gong dude waits and waits and waits. And it's only when one of Lao She's goon pulls up the Tommy gun that he's like, oh, fuck this, I'm out. But, you know, he stayed on his post until the last possible moment. So, yeah, that Gong guy, fair play. He was getting every minute of screen time he could.
Well, if they had to squeeze him into those tight trousers, he was gonna pay it off.
Yeah, but even like they were like, I love all like the little nods to like the wider universe. Like, is his name Wuhan? The guy he's working with, the waiter.
Yeah.
And it's like that oddly, you know, emotional moment where he gets shot and he's like, I followed you on so many adventures, but into the great unknown mystery. I go first, Indy. It's like, oh, what are all these extra adventures? And, you know, the stuff was short round later. But I'm not sure how many of these are actually covered in the Young Indiana Jones films, because I've never really watched them.
I've seen a couple, but years ago, I couldn't tell you. When he got shot, what was his name? Did you say Lao Shen?
No. Lao Shan's the bad guy.
Yeah, so what was Indy's friend's name?
Lao She's the bad guy, and I think his friend's Wuhan.
So when he got shot, why did it sound like that the revolver had a silencer on it when it was clearly just a revolver? Yeah,
it didn't make any sense. There was two gun like that. It was too loud. So it, you know, even with all the champagne bottles going off, there's no, you know, surely people are going to hear the gunshot. But then also after Indiana Jones has been poisoned, and he takes like the flaming skewer and he throws it into that guy's chest. It looks for the life of me like that, because the guy then shoots his gun, and it looks like he shoots Willie. But nothing happens. But to me, it always looked like he shot Willie. But I'm not sure what happens there. It's just this one scene I can never quite make out exactly what they're going for.
Once he gets stabbed, his arm doesn't look like his. Then it looks.
The whole
animatronic. It's all a bit sus. But
there's one nod actually to young Indiana Jones in that scene, because the diamond that they're passing around, that Indiana Jones wants, is the peacock eye supposedly, and there's an episode of the young Indiana Jones called The Treasure of the Peacock Eye. So that is a cool little nod to, or obviously it's the other way around. The show is a nod to the diamond from the film. But I thought that was pretty cool.
I enjoyed that. So I did love as well, after the whole melee that was going on in the club, and they were able to get that gong to move exactly as they wanted it to get him out the window.
Yeah, it's ace, yeah.
And then they went through 3 or 4 awnings that were poorly made by the looks of it. And then conveniently, the last 2 awnings before they hit the street must have been made of vibranium or something, because they didn't rip. They just bounced off.
Well, I guess they're taking heat out of them because, it's a very different film. If they hit the first one, it doesn't rip. They just roll off to their death, presumably. So,
And then they land in Short Round's car. And his opening line is, it had me in stitches. When he says, did you write that down as well?
What's that?
When he says, punch it, Short Line, or Short Round.
Short line. Short round.
Punch it, Short Round. The Short Round goes, okie dokie, Dr. Jones, hold on to your potatoes.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
That is the best line ever.
He gets so many great lines in this movie. Yeah. But, I mean, before we move on, the one thing, because we're going to have this conversation at some point, is the Kate Capshaw, Willie Scott's conversation, because I know a lot of people have issues with Willie, especially after Marion Ravenwood's is like, she's such a kind of strong, independent woman kind of thing, in many ways, like, they're seen as this kind of almost like a match for Indy. And then I guess people saw this as going slightly backwards in that she's much more a traditional damsel in distress.
Yeah. And
I get that you can have issues with that, but I'm not sure if every character, every kind of female joint lead, I suppose, whatever you want to call it, for the indie films. Because, of course, the idea was like, they were talking about bringing Marion back, but the whole idea was that he would always have different people around him in each film to play off. So it wasn't, he was the only consistent part of the films, and everyone else would be like different characters. I get it, why some people have an issue with that. I think she's massively underrated. I think, and I know people are like, oh, well, she only got the part because she was going out with Steven Spielberg, who she's still married to now. Yeah, but she's like a really good comedic actor in this film.
See, I didn't read that, mind. I didn't read. I read that they met during filming.
Oh, was it? I thought maybe that they kind of got together beforehand.
No, I
wasn't
read
sure
that they
that.
met
Apologies, I got that wrong.
And they became close during filming. So,
I see.
So she got that part on her own. So I'm giving her credit then, which is on your. The only way I can describe Willie is the fact that she didn't know how to scream, apparently. So she had to be taught how to scream. And it says that then she screamed 71 times in this film.
Yeah, I've got that down as well.
Oh my fucking God. You remember every scream.
She does scream a lot.
Sweden, mate.
Oh, see, I actually really liked her.
Like Sweden.
I thought she was like a classic fish out of water. I thought her comedic chops throughout the film are really good. Like, that opening musical number, I think she was supposed to dance in it a bit more, but supposedly her first dress got eaten by one of the elephants, and then, because it was like the last thing they shot for the film was actually the dance scene. So they'd filmed the rest of the film by the time they got around to this. So yeah, she was supposed to wear another dress, but it was eaten by a goddamn elephant. And then the dress she ends up wearing, the kind of sequin thing she's got going on, she couldn't move in it, so she therefore couldn't dance. So she's just singing, but she's singing in Chinese in it. It's one of those things. I have no idea if a Mandarin sounds any good in Anything Goes. But I don't know, man. Like right from the off, I'm on board with her, and it's like a counter character to Marion, because you don't want to do Marion for every film. It's like, yeah, she's the classic damsel, but she plays it well. I'm
not asking you to do Marion for every film, because I wasn't a huge fan of Marion.
Oh, I love Marion, but I like Willie too.
I mean, as I go back and as I get older, but I was always more for the adventure when I was a kid watching these films. I didn't need the damsel in distress or anything like that,
or the love interest or whatever.
Yeah, but she does have some redeeming. I say redeeming. I'm not trying to downplay what she did in this film, but a couple of things that I thought were endearing and quite clever, like when he's about to drink that weird martini poison drink thing, and she gets up and she said, "Look, there's 2 holes in my dress," and she knocks it off.
Yeah.
Everything.
Well, it's right from the opening sequence, like even with the musical number, which is so beautifully choreographed, and actually has the screenwriter from Raiders and in Lucasfilm president Kathleen Turner. Is it not Kathleen Turner? Kathleen Kennedy.
Kathleen
wrote
Turner.
That down Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
She's actually in the dance number.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's bizarre because she didn't want to, she would have naturally been the screenwriter for this film, or one of them, but she thought it was such a dark film and just inherently a mean-spirited movie that she refused to be a screenwriter on it. But she was still an executive producer, and she was, one of the dancers in the number. So it's quite an odd, relationship with this film. But yeah, I just, one of those weird things I never knew. And of course, you've got to be told, because you would never notice it. I got to be honest, I'm not sure what Kathleen Kennedy looks like, especially not in 1984. But
no, you know more about Kathleen Kennedy now because she's the head of Lucasfilm.
Yeah. So, but sorry, to get back to the musical number, it's like right from the off, Willie's very poised and she's delivering this great musical number, but she has like a little trip. It's such an endearing little moment early in the film when she's like stepping back up the steps. I'm not sure if it was on purpose or whether they filmed it and thought, oh, that's cool, let's just keep it in where she kind of trips but then keeps going. I was like,
she keeps a smile on her face. Like I said, there are some moments where they're endearing and you enjoy the character. But then the screaming, in the jungle screaming, and we'll get to the jungle because there's a lot to cover before we get to the jungle. But the jungle screaming where the animals are around them. Her screaming was doing my head in, but I did love and I'm rubbing my head as I think of that. I did love the fact that they're ignoring it and just playing poker.
I love that scene. I love that. I love the interaction between Short Round and Indy in that scene.
Her screaming is just nails on a chalkboard at some time. But they're in the car now. He shoots his gun and he asks her to hold it and she chucks her out the window. And did they really need that? All you can say is like that sexist line that you get a lot, I suppose, during this period, where it's I broke a nail. Yeah,
the thing is, again, this is my issue, and I guess we can deal with kind of one of the other big issues, which is the race issue with this film, where, you know, you put on this film now, and a lot of people say it's got outdated attitudes, which, you know, it does. But I just don't have any issues with this film because, let's be clear, it was released in 1984 and it was set in 1935, so set before Raiders. So one of the reasons we're doing this is actually set chronologically before Raiders. Yeah. So like, who's watching this film and thinking, oh, this is true cultural representations? It's not like, you know, it's like, say I was watching this in the 80s. It's like me going back and watching How Green Was My Valley and being like, oh my God, I can't believe that all Welsh people are choir singers and fucking miners. It's like, you know, I had enough common sense when I was young to know that film's from the 40s, because that is what we're talking about here. Yeah. You know, Temple of Doom to now is like me watching a film from the mid-40s to the 40s. Back then, sorry. And it wasn't like I was watching those films and going, yep, this is what the world's like. It's like I knew they were old films with outdated. I don't need it rammed down my fucking throat. It's like when I was 6, I knew fucking Tintin was racist. I need to be told it. I just fucking knew it.
I'm not trying to turn around and say any of that or ram anything down you. I feel that line was misplaced. Like, I feel that line, it didn't need it. She chucked it out the window because the gun was hot. Mm-hmm, I appreciate that she held it the wrong way, but like, I don't know, that just, it kind of took me out of it. I broke a nail. Oh, you just groan at lines like that.
I see. I just think it played into the whole, like, she really, like, the first film is like Marion was this like tough girl who belonged in those situations to a certain extent. Yeah. Like, straight away they're establishing like she has no place in any of these adventures. She's like a showgirl. She's used to a comfortable life. Like, she's clearly marrying. Like, you know, her interest. I don't think she had any interest in Lao She other than the fact that he's clearly rich. The same when she goes to Pankot Palace. And she's immediately after the Maharaja because she's like, well, there's a free ride in this for me. Yeah,
like, does he have a wife? Maybe he hasn't met the right woman. That's quite funny.
Yeah. It's like, okay, sure, it's not the best representation of women now, but it's like, yeah, just like, dude, some women are dicks. Like, some women are money grabbing so-and-sos. And that's the end of it. And as I said, I don't have a problem with that. And I said to my wife, because she was watching it with me, I was like, do you have a problem with Willie? And she was, again, that sounds weird, but she was like, no, if anything, she actually reminds me of me, which I thought was quite, well, there was the bit, you know, when they jump out of the plane and she's just screaming at Indy. It's like, I hate the water, I hate getting wet, and I hate you. She's God, that sounds like something I would say to you.
Before we go to my other issue, which is jumping out of a plane in a rubber dinghy. And again, Indiana Jones, a lot of films that we do on this podcast, you can suspend disbelief. But a rubber dinghy out of a plane, we'll get to that. But before that, when they arrive at the airport or whatever that place is, that
yeah, well, this is the 1930s airport where you can just rock up and just jump on a plane. Of course,
so they arrive at the random farmers market that just has a plane next to them.
Yeah. Dan Aykroyd's running shit. It's fine.
Dan Aykroyd, yeah, that's exactly what. But there was a couple of I got it in facts, but there was a couple of other people in that scene as well. I think George Lucas was in that scene, floating around as well. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then they get onto the plane, and Indy thinks he's won, and it's his little like nods, like better luck next time. And then as he closes the door, it's his name on. Then he's going, "Nice, see you soon, Dr. Jones," or something. I can't remember what he says.
Yeah. But he looks like he's screwed basically because his guys are running the show. But and I love his little henchman. Like, I love it's like, and again, those like weird little lines you kind of latch onto when you're younger. It's like rather, when they're sneaking past him and they jump off the plane, it's like the dude turns around and goes, Gawunga. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool as fuck.
That, as he's walking past, he takes time to stop, look at Indiana and go, carry on walking. Like, why are you laughing at him and risking waking him up?
I love that bit. Like, he's just like, dude, you're so fucked. And the surprising thing about that scene is that they find out, obviously, Willie wakes up Indy and Short Round to tell them nobody's flying the plane. At that point, you immediately assume it's Indiana Jones. He'll be able to fly this plane. He can't fly a plane. It's like, it's one of those cool little moments where I was like, oh, I just assumed Indiana Jones could do everything. But
he says, I don't know how to fly a plane. And he goes, do you know how to fly a plane? No, do you? Then he clearly turns around and goes, altimeter, fine. Airspeed, fine. Like, I don't know how to fly a plane. I'm never going to sit in a cockpit and go, oh, the altimeter, which is right by there. Like, I wouldn't know where the fuck the altimeter...
I think in fairness, like, you can have, like, a vague understanding, especially, let's be honest, it's like super old cargo plane. Okay, this isn't going to be like jumping on a kind of, a Boeing 347. It's going to have like
you could look at an altimeter and tell me that it's fine.
No, I'm saying Indiana Jones has been in enough planes to be like, oh, I get a general gist, but like, there's a big difference between knowing how a plane works and then being able to land the son of a bitch, especially when you're already on a collision course with a mountain.
Why do you need to land it when you, again, must be made out of the same material that those two awnings were made out of? It's rubber dinghy.
Well, I've got an interesting thing with that rubber dinghy, because I always thought, is this the most ridiculous stunt in all of the Indiana Jones film? Is the rubber dinghy out the plane the most ridiculous stunt? And I always thought it was. I know there's arguments about, obviously, the fridge sequence from Kingdom of Crystal Skulls, which I stand by. I think that's a really cool scene, but whatever.
Moving on.
When I was watching this sequence, I was like, God, this is ridiculous. But then when the dinghy, like, obviously they drop it from like a great height and it lands on the mountain, I suddenly looked at it and went, ooh, that looks surprisingly survivable. I was saying, like, maybe it would work.
Really? Because I looked at the way it landed on the mountain and thought, you'd be fucked.
See, I maybe because I was coming in from like, this is so ridiculous, it's never working. That when I saw it, I was like, well, maybe they could survive.
Coming from a guy that's fallen from a little bit of a height, that looks like it would hurt, mate.
Oh, I think it would hurt. But I'm like, could they conceively survive the way it lands?
They're not walking away from that. Maybe is not stopping them. They're not walking away from it.
The thing is, there's probably like a whole bunch of people, if you're listening to this, so like they've already done it on Mythbusters and they proved that everybody fucking dies because that's what Mythbusters does. It ruins movies. So I don't want to know about it. I'm just going to pretend that it was conceivable. Either way, it's another, that opening, because it's basically still part of the opening sequence.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it just keeps going, like the musical number.
That opening sequence keeps going until you get into India and you get the introduction.
Yeah, so this is like what we think of as being the second part of the film. It's like the arrival into India.
Yeah,
and of course it goes straight in with the big plane number, and of course it lands on the mountain, but then let's not forget it slides down the mountain, then goes off what is like an absolutely outrageous cliff, and then lands in the water, and then they end up just.
They should have got to India as corpses at that point. They should have just been the guru, the leader of the Indian village. Should have just looked at them and went, "Yeah, 3 more dead people right here."
2 more dead instead. But that's the thing, Shiva sent them. So, and that is one of the things that it's always behind the scenes in these films. It's like, how is it that they've conveniently landed not only in India but in this river, which leads them to this like crazy adventure? And they basically pass it off that legitimately Shiva has sent them. Like, that's always like the hint, isn't it? That there is something to the, right back to Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's not just the Ark of the Covenant. They open it up and the power of God is legitimately in there. In Last Crusade.
Higher power is the best.
Yeah. Like, the cup of Christ. You pick the wrong one, it will literally melt your face. So, we're led to believe that Shiva has literally led them, this white savior, to this little Indian village in the middle of nowhere, halfway between Delhi and Pankot Palace. But again, it just works for me. Like, straight away, I love the village scene. Like you say, I'm not sure if he's a guru or the village elder. I love that guy. Like, he just looks the part. And
who speaks perfect English.
Well, supposedly he spoke no English.
No English. Yeah, that's for me. It sounds like he speaks perfect English. But Spielberg you're probably about to say this. Sorry for interrupting you.
Go for it.
Spielberg behind camera is mouthing the words to him. So the reason why he takes a breath is not because it's for dramatic effect. It's because he's waiting for Spielberg to feed him his next line.
Yeah. He's delivering everything phonetically. And on top of that, supposedly he was copying Spielberg's hand motions as well. Yeah. So all of his actions are very much Spielberg's as well. But again, that's probably why they picked. It's like, yeah, okay, he doesn't speak English, but this dude just looks like the village elder. He just looks like the dude.
There is that scene then, I'm actually going to say I was on Willie's side for that, where she wouldn't eat the food.
Oh, I'd totally eat the food.
Nothing against the food. The food looked lovely and I would totally eat it. I'm against 300 people watching me eat.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. But they also, and again, that scene comes back to weird things you pick up amongst you and your friends. When you were younger and you watch these films over and over again, it's like, to this day, it's like if one of my friends or my brother or something like that is playing with their food and they're unsure, I'll give them a little nudge on their shoulder and go, "Abudika, abudika," like the little woman, like encouraging them to eat. Why that bit stuck in my head for so long? And I love the little Wizendoll guy with a beard. Eat.
Yeah, I don't do well with people watching me eat. So 300 people just
couldn't give a fuck. You can all watch me eat as long as I'm getting a free meal. But yeah, that little dude, he only has like 2 lines, but again, they're memorable. It's like he's got this weird squeaky little voice. They dug the stones from here. Yeah. I don't know why are they always so memorable, but yeah, such a cool scene. But let's not forget, in that sequence, of course, Shiva supposedly sent Indiana Jones, and there's this whole thing about the white savior and stuff. Let's be clear, he's just been told everything's dying. All the kids have been taken in that weird scene where he's having the oddest conversation with the village elder because he's talking to him and he's walking away and narrating it for us. But straight after that, he makes it abundantly clear he's not going to save the kids. He's there specifically for fortune and glory, dude. Yeah. He is there to get the stones, to take them out of India to a museum and get fucking paid, because that's what Indy's about. He's not a hero in the traditional sense. He's there to get paid and to get famous, and that's it.
The Prime Minister even says it, doesn't like you've been accused of grave robbing, you've been accused of thievery, you've been accused of all of this. And Indy's like, no, they're just misunderstandings. But no, Indy is literally there to get paid.
Oh, 100%. Like he's got like a moral compass, but it's skewed for sure. He's no, knight in shining armor at all. And that goes right the way through that whole thing about fortune and glory, it goes, and I am jumping ahead slightly here, but right up to the point that when they go to the underground cult dungeon under Pankot Palace, and he gets the stones initially, he's about to take them, and he is about to leave. Yeah. He's got the stones. He's about to fucking bounce. He's not going back to the village. He's not going to save the kids. He's got the stones. He's about to fucking bounce on the next plane to Delhi and then hottail it back to the US. And it's only because he hears literal kid screams. He's like, oh man, I'm going to have to go and see about those kids, dude. This is fucked up.
So you've jumped there now. So there's
we'll go back.
But there's 3 points. Now we're there. We might as well bring up my 3 points. First of all, you said the name of the palace. Mm-hmm. Did you know the name of it before you Googled it or wrote it down?
Pankot Palace?
Yeah.
Yeah, just from seeing the film before, yeah.
Okay. I always thought they were saying Bangkok Palace.
But that's Thailand.
Yeah. That's why I questioned it.
Yeah, I get, but like you said, if you're 6 years old and you watch this film and you hear Bangkok Palace, and you know that there's a place called Bangkok, you're not necessarily thinking, oh, wait a minute, geographically, I'm not sure about this. You're just like, I'll run with that for the rest of my life.
It was only watching it this time. No, they're not saying Bangkok, they're saying and as he goes down,
Bangkok's not in India. What the fuck?
As he goes down to get the stones, Shiva must have also made his whip grow.
Yeah. Which sounds dodgy again.
Yeah, because he whips that statue, that elephant trunk or whatever it is, to swing across the literal river of lava.
Yeah.
And his whip is tiny to start with. And then when it goes to the other way, he's going down a rope, let's be fair.
Well, dude, it's a magic whip. It's a magic whip and a magic hat.
His satchel must be magic as well. That was the third point I wanted to cover. Because those stones, when they get in proximity of each other, glow like fuck.
Yeah, but not in the bag.
Not if they're in his satchel.
Not in the satchel, not in the magic satchel, or near his magic hat, or his extending magic whip.
Yeah.
So there is there's some issues with this one for sure. But before we get there, because that is very much in Act 3 of what I consider Act 3.
Yeah, go back. You brought it up. I had to.
No, absolutely. But we will get back to that. But obviously, the next obvious scene is your favorite, the camp scene. Now, I know you don't like the screaming, but I think Willie puts on like a comedic masterclass there. I think she's great in that scene. And I know she's screaming, but I think it's so beautifully offset by that great card scene with Indy and Short Round. And as I said, the relationship with Indy and Short Round, I don't think I'd ever noticed how lovely their relationship is. Like even later on when some horrible stuff like happens, and he's like, Indy, you're my best friend. I'm like, oh, I totally believe it.
I was always gutted that he never came back. Short Round never came back for the third one.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
No, it does make sense. Because you said because of their relationship, I was always gutted that you never saw more of Short Round. But
even just his few little lines where it's just like how many, because I like that name is like, it's brought up in my house every day because I call my wife Short Round all the time. Yeah. Not because she looks like a young Chinese boy, just because, she's shorter than me. But she's like, why do you keep calling me? Are you saying I'm short and round? I was like, no, that's not what I'm playing. You're just small. But just like when they're having that back and forth, it's like, I'm very little, you cheat very big. And it's like, they're bickering like a married couple, but it's like a dude and this young kid. It's so awesome.
That scene got Short Round the job.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be, he didn't actually audition.
He went with his brother.
Oh, his brother must be pissed off now. His older brother went to audition and he was just with him and they just saw him and went, wait, give that kid a go. And he was the one who got the role.
That's happened because I'm pretty sure that was Mark Hamill as well. Mark Hamill won.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. I could be messing this right up.
I have no idea.
But I think he went to support, it was Freddy Krueger.
What the hell?
Robert Englund.
Robert Englund, yeah. Robert Englund.
Englund, yeah. I'm pretty sure he went to support Robert Englund, and then they just asked him, "Do you want to audition as well?" And he went, "Yeah, okay." And then they gave it to him.
It's such like an old-fashioned Hollywood thing. Do you want to give it a bash while you're here? So yeah, go on in. Oh yeah, you've got the part. But you can't imagine anyone else doing it. Like
no. And like I said, that scene is endearing, and I do love the banter that those two have together. And
but you hate the scream
everything, but. It's Willie's voice, man. It's like nails on a chalkboard.
But it's supposed to be, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it is. And I know it's meant to deliver that response. I know, and she's doing it perfectly because she's getting the response from me that she's meant to get. So,
and I think part of it as well is that obviously, unlike the other films which are set in, largely in Europe or maybe more recognizable areas, like they're really trying to sell like, oh, this is like this like. Far-flung kind of mysterious place. And it's like, obviously, Indy's playing it cool because he's Indiana Jones. So, you can make the argument she goes a bit overboard, but the idea that she's supposed to be like, am I the only one freaking the fuck out? Like, she just, like, I can't deal with any of this. Like, she's the prim and proper Western kind of, princess, and she just can't deal with any of it. Like, she's a bit rubbish, let's be honest. And that again, I think it works for the film.
Let's cover why they made this a prequel, then. They made this a prequel because they didn't want another film where he fought the Nazis.
Yeah, and anything after 30. I mean, this one's set in 35, is it?
This is 35, and
Raiders is 36.
6, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, anything after 36, and you literally can't have it in that time period and not mention the Nazis.
That's what I mean. So I do appreciate that they've tried to cover a different story. So the whole prequel thing is no bother to me. The fact that this film is darker is no bother to me whatsoever. You said... And you're right, when Willie's running around and freaking out about, there's nobody else know what's going on here. There's animals everywhere. I did love that little nod to the snake. Like, Indy didn't do his usual, like, this was the only film, I think, where he's not lying in a bed of snakes.
Yeah. It's just there's like
just that little, and
two little nods.
He freaked out perfectly. She thinks it's the elephant on her. And he's like, like, and it's such a good scene. It's such a good interaction between the two.
No, I think it's great. And again, it comes back to that whole, like, I think her physical comedy is underrated, especially in that scene, how she pulls the snake off and stuff. I think it's really good. But it's weird because there are two interactions with snakes. There's that scene, and then there's another one when he's taking the stones and he looks up and there's like a statue of a snake and he has like a little moment, tips his hat. But bizarrely, in the dining scene, which comes next, where they're eating all the crazy shit. What is it? Chilled monkey brains, eyeball soup. And the other one is snake surprise, where they they have a snake, they cut it open, and there's snakes inside it. Indy doesn't have any reaction to that, which is quite surprising.
What are they eating? What's Indy, the general or corporal or whatever? Like, I don't know what his rank was, the British guy, and the Prime Minister, because they're not eating anything that is literally next to them on the table. They've already got to plate the food.
Of like pretty standard looking food. Yeah. I never noticed their normal food. I was kind of, when everyone else is eating bugs.
But that's right. Those three are given plates of food. The Maharaja is not eating anything.
Yeah, he didn't give a fuck.
He is the weirdest cuckold in the world because he's just watching everybody else just chow down what he's staring.
Yeah, well, that's his prerogative, I suppose. He's the Maharaja.
That's all he's done in this film is stare. Like, all he did in this film was just watch people.
He has his little speech, which is okay, I suppose. But, that whole, like... And again, I've heard people, like... And just be clear, I hate the term problematic. Like, it's the first word you hear when anyone talks about this film is, because of representation stuff. And, like, I get it, but problematic to me is the term used for when people are told what they should be offended by other people who have nothing to do with the issue. As I said... I don't think this film's necessarily problematic because the only issue, if your kids have got an issue with this film, if they come out and start thinking this is a true representation of India, then you're just a bad parent as far as I'm concerned. Again, let's be clear, this is set in the 30s, it was filmed in the 80s, and the majority of it, you're not seeing a representation of India, you're seeing a representation of an evil cult. Like, even the shit they're eating, like everyone there, I presume, is in on it. Like, there's obviously the dude, his kind of envoy, whatever you want to call him, the guy from Oxford, who, he's down in the Thuggy Temple later. The Maharaja, he's down in the Thuggy Temple. I assume they're all suffering from the, the black
death
blood
of
the Kali?
Yeah, it was the blood of something, wasn't it? They were drinking.
They drunk the blood of the Kali Ma and it put them in the black death of the Kali, whatever kind of thing. But yeah, they're all eating weird shit, but they're in a thuggy, evil temple. And to be honest, I've eaten some really weird shit in Korea in the 2000s. In Thailand, I literally ate bugs in the street. Oh, and I also ate a fucking scorpion. This happens all around the world. I don't think it's that good. I just think it's just kind of emphasizing the otherness of it. It's like, this is a weird place where you eat weird shit. Although saying that, for all my criticism, this film was banned and is banned in India.
In India, yeah.
Yeah, supposedly they were like, you can shoot here as long as we can censor the film. And when they said no, they're like, all right, fuck this, we'll go film it in Sri Lanka instead. Yeah. So yeah, it's worked out, I suppose. But
the scene where she had to move a spoon around for the eyeballs to pop up was filmed like about 9 or 10 times because they had to stick the eyeballs to the bottom. And you can see it when she's turning. You can see it. She's struggling to pop them as she's turning.
Oh, I see. Yeah, for them to rise up at the same time, kind of.
Because she was only ever knocking 1 or 2.
And you got to have all 3. You need all 3 for sure. Yeah. All right. Out of interest, if you go there, and those are the meals, and you see other people eating them. So there's the bug or the beetle where you take the back off and you eat the inside. There's the eyeball soup. There's chilled monkey brains, and there's snake surprise. How many of those are you going to eat?
2 out of 4.
2 out of 4. So are you going to go for eyeball soup?
No.
But see, I feel like you could eat around the eyeballs.
Around the eyeballs, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat the eyeballs.
It's probably the random bits that's coming off the eyeballs.
I know what you mean.
No, it's the bug.
I could eat the bug, yeah. I go for the bug.
And monkey brains, chilled monkey brains, because I've eaten lamb brains.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. I'd eat chilled monkey brains. Yeah. The snake surprise, I'm like, again, I've seen some pretty comparable shit in Korea. Not that it was cut out of a snake. The snake surprise does add a visual factor.
I'm not a huge fan of something, should we say, wiggling down my throat.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, I guess in Korea, there's like, you can eat live squid, or I had live abalone, where they put it on the barbecue and it's still moving, and it was like knocking other bits of food. It's in the shell and you just eat it live, and it's slimy as fuck. But I was like, it was there. I was like, fuck it, I'm in Korea, I'm going to eat it. I'm thinking I'd probably eat everything but the eyeballs. But I'm not eating those goddamn eyeballs.
That one guy who was, for lack of a tasteful word, deep throating those 2 snakes.
Oh, he is properly deep throating them.
He was swallowing them whole. So those things are swirling around in his stomach.
I'm not doing it that way. No, you'd have to bite them first for sure. Yeah. You can't just fucking deep throat them down. Yeah. Fuck that noise.
That guy opened his gullet and just let those things fall.
Like, yeah, it's pretty great. But the thing is, even at that point, it's like, yeah, you're eating chilled monkey brain stuff, but it's still being played off as being quite fun.
Yeah.
But it's after that where briefly the film gets really sexy really quickly and then becomes, again, around the 50-minute mark, it gets very sexy and then it becomes a cult horror film for the next 30 minutes.
Hated or 40 minutes, sorry. In air quotes, for two people that hated each other, wow, they wanted to go for it.
And some of the lines where he goes in, he's like, the nocturnal activities, primitive mating rituals. He's got years of field experience. I'm like, you dirty bastard. But
just before
then the baller line at the end, was like, I'll let you know in the morning, how good she is.
And as he's shutting the door. But and just before that, it's like Short Round has known that Dr. Jones has got some women in the past because he's like, tell me about it tomorrow. As he closes his door.
It's like
don't tell me you're telling a 12-year-old boy your sexual escapades.
Yeah, it's like he comes back the next morning. It's like, dude, I knocked the bottom out that ass last night. You better believe it, Short Round.
He comes back going, Short Round, smell my finger.
Oh my God.
No.
I hope not. But I mean, some of his lines are pretty outrageous, but this sexual, it's pretty hot. Like, they are keen on each other. Obviously, they end up bickering and stuff like that. Yeah. But there's a bit of, not long after that where Indy kisses her for the first time. And then the camera just stays on her face and the longing on her face. Like, she does the full, the bite the lip thing. Like, oh my God, I'm going to fuck him. Like, she has that face. Like, she wants a piece of Indy. So yeah, it gets oddly sexy for I don't know, a few minutes there. But then immediately, as I said, for the next 40 minutes, strap yourself in because this film gets dark.
The jealousy on her face as he's cupping a wall statue. And she's like, totally. I'm right here. She's just
she literally cups her own breasts when she says it. It's amazing. But yeah, that leads straight into another one of this movie's multiple fantastic set pieces. The lowering ceiling, with the spikes and the bugs.
Yeah.
And again, it's another one of those things from the 80s that if you watch, again, this will be the last time I bring it up, Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, there's a bit where the guy gets eaten by ants and it's CG and it looked rubbish then in 2008, whoever it was, and it looks rubbish now. This film, they had to get in all those bugs for real. And it looks so much better for it. That giant bug on Willie's hand, I don't even know what those are. They look gross as fuck.
Yeah. It's just those weird mandibles, the top mandibles, antenna, whatever.
Yeah, the full works. But they're super gross. And this scene, again, we keep coming back to this in every episode we do, more great skeletons. Yeah. Like the bit where the spike comes up and it lifts the skeleton up. Although I'm not too sure. When Short Round pulls the wall away and two chained skeletons come out, they don't look like humans. They look like goblins.
They were, and there was a lot of that. Like, when I know you're going to move on to it in a minute. When they were in the sacrifice temple, you had the weird skins.
It's pretty gross.
And they didn't look human either, those, because they were really like they had been baked and they turned into leather or something, because they were
maybe everything else kind of burnt away and it's just left a kind of leathery skin afterwards. But yeah, it's amazing that we're talking about this in a supposed family film. But
another proof of Short Round being fantastic, though, where the ceiling's coming down and he's just there going, I stood right here, you told me stand right here. And he
Well, that's the great thing about this.
He's such a fast talker. It's fantastic. He does it so well.
Yeah, no, he's brilliant in that scene, and it's one of the great. Even though things are about to get super dark, and obviously they were almost killed by the spikes, there are still those moments of levity. There's a lot of slapstick comedy in that scene, like you say, with Short Round, he keeps knocking it, and then when finally Willie puts a hand through, pulls the lever, gets the door open, she immediately comes in, drops the lantern, hits a bum on the wall, sets it all off again. And even when Indy's looking through, I love that scene when he's looking through the hole and she's like, I can't do it. It's like, we are going to die. And it's like the look on his face is like, it's almost from a comedy film, but that seems classic Indiana Jones.
Really and for practical effects, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that goes throughout this film and throughout the series is, again, coming back to the bugs. that scene works because all those bugs are legitimately there. And you see it and it makes your skin crawl. Like, yeah, sure, as always, Willie's overdoing it. But I'm like, if I had all those bugs on me, man, I'd be freaking the fuck out as well.
Kate Capshaw said she was really covered with over 2,000 insects and she took sedatives prior to the scene to get over initial fear. And she said, well, they worked. Well, sedatives work.
Yeah, well, whatever it takes, because, yeah, that is the thing. You see it, and you see them on her, and you're like, that doesn't look fun at all. But once they do get out of that leads right into the Thuggy Temple, and this is where the film really goes. You know, when you're talking about, this doesn't feel like a PG-13 anymore. This is inching towards an adult film, not an adult in the, you know what I mean, like a grown-up film. You get the introduction to Mola Ram, who's a great villain, I think. Yeah. He gets some great lines, certainly looks the part. But, you know, they're watching this guy come out and he immediately sells it because, he's doing the Om Nam Shivai, Om Nam Shivai. He looks terrified. And I had a genuine, because I watched this film today and it's the first time I've seen it in a while. Did you watch on Sky? They're showing the Blu-ray cut of this film. Yes. And it's got all new shit on it. I was like, what? It's so hot. You can see why it got cut. When he takes his heart out, you actually see him put his hand through his chest and pull his heart back out of his chest.
Chest heal up.
Yeah. And it looks gross. And
can we go on to my favourite question?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of pulling his heart out? As a matter of fact, what's the point of that whole scene other than to introduce Mola Ram? Like, there's no point in it.
Well, it's just to tell you that they're fucked up, that this is some super dark shit you're dealing with. And
he pulls his heart out only to watch his heart go on fire when the guy, who, I'm sorry, must have been covered in flammable liquid because he caught on fire really quickly, whereas Kate's Capshaw, Willie, when she was being sacrificed, could have kissed the lava.
Yeah, she could. It's quite weird. And again, that's another one of those scenes that was cut originally. Like, when you're watching it again, you see him go down, and then it immediately cuts to a side-on shot, and you see him fall into the lava or whatever.
Yeah.
In the updated cut, which was originally kind of what the film was going to be before it got cut by the BBFC, was he goes down for much longer. He screams all the way down. You see him literally catch fire and burn to death before he's put into the molten lava. It's fucking dark as, man. And there's so much more of Mola Ram holding the heart with it being on fire.
Speaking of what's the point, why are they facing him up, pushing him to the ceiling, then to turn him round to face down? Why not just face him down anyway?
I see what you mean. The thing is, it's all for a fact that, when you're sacrificing somebody to an evil deity, there's always got to be a show. You can't just go up and stab him in the chest. You've got to have Mola Ram. He has the drama. He has that great line where, he looks up and he's got the hands and it's Ukti Degi Galima. Galima. Galima Shakti Day. All that. Like, my wife loves that because I do it all the time. I just start saying Galima and I'll do the hand on the chest. She is not keen at all, by the way.
I bet no.
Yeah, she's not.
What was I going to say? They kind of limited themselves to their sacrifice as well, didn't they?
What do you mean?
Well, that cage, they're not really getting a larger sacrifice, are they? Let's be fair.
Oh, you mean like one of us?
Well, they're not getting a 6-foot guy and they're not getting a fat guy.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I appreciate that their sacrifice is probably a malnourished from down in the mines anyway, so they're not.
Yeah.
They've kind of limited themselves to the kind of sacrifice they're going to get.
I think they've built that for purpose. In fairness, they're looking down in the mines. They're not eating much, not getting much sunlight. The average height's about 5'7". We don't need a massive cage, and if all else fails, we can just fucking lob them in because, obviously the pit's pretty dark and. I don't know how they separate it from, obviously, Mola Ram is putting on his show at the front, and then you've got all the other dudes, they're all kicking off on the other side of the lava.
Why have they got the trapdoor to lower him in when you can just kick the guy into the obvious open cavern of molten lava?
Well, as I said, man, it's all, see, this is why you will never get on the good side of an evil deity. You can't just go kicking people in and saying, hey, Mola Ram, was that good enough for you? It's like, no. Not Mola Ram. Mola Ram's a bad guy, Galima. So you can't just be like, Galima, don't worry about it, bro. I just kicked him in. It's like you've got to have the ritual. You've got to have the chanting. You've got to have the heart pulling. The full works, dude.
So you want the showmanship.
And you've got to have the showmanship.
You're saying Kali wants the showmanship. Whereas apparently the deity I'm praying to literally just wants the job done, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Your deity is like, come on, just fucking get on with it. Where my one, he wants, Kali Ma, he wants a show.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's at this point, let's be honest, like, obviously, we already mentioned the fact that Indy goes down. He sees, he has his opportunity to take the 3 stones, the 3 chakra stones, and bounce, but he hears the kids screaming. And let's be honest, you're talking for the next 20 minutes now. You're talking about slave kids being whipped. You're talking about possession. You're talking about, kids wishing verbally to die. Like, they get put in that cage and you immediately, I pray to Shiva, let me die. It's like, nobody fucking asked you, dude. Like, chill the fuck out.
Dark.
There's the skull drink. There's voodoo torture. The Black Sleep of the Kali Ma, that's what it was called. Sorry. And they reference it as being alive, but in like a waking nightmare. I was like, Jesus Christ,
you're alive, but you're not there kind of thing. It's all... But
it's super dark, man.
As Indy hears them all crying, and he goes there, and he sees the massive dude who apparently rocks don't affect when they're thrown at you from a great height.
Yeah, there's more stuff about him as well. We'll get to him later.
Yeah.
Great stuff I didn't know about, which is fantastic.
Good old Pat Roach. Is that what you're going with?
I didn't know we were dealing with a bit of brown face in this movie, but we were dealing with some fucking brown face. But we'll get to him later. Yeah,
we will get to Pat Roach. But yeah, apparently rocks don't affect this guy. So again, he's made of the same stuff as that awning and that dinghy.
He's invincible. Yeah.
And it just gets super and I always thought it was a bigger build-up. But as soon as
that's what I thought.
As soon as he notices all the kids and he realizes he's caught.
Yeah. And he's possessed almost immediately.
Getting whipped as well before.
Yeah, and that whip scene, there's an extra whipping scene. Like, in that scene is always in the cut you've seen on DVD, on TV. But if you watch it now, again on Blu-ray or on Sky, they whip him, but then the other little kid fucking whips Short Round. Yeah. And Indy actually turns around. He's like, "Leave him alone, you bastard!" It's like, what the fuck? It's like you've got kids whipping kids. This is dark as fuck.
Yeah.
And then you just get him writhing. He's being possessed and putting, Willie spits in his face.
Yes.
And the one thing about that scene, because obviously once Indy, because it does happen quick. It sounds like we're not jumping anything. He's immediately possessed, and immediately they go into ritualistically killing Willie off. Or that's the plan. Although she drops down for ages, she should burn. You've already mentioned that. But that scene, once Indiana Jones is brought back from the Black Sleep of the Kali Ma by the flame, by Short Round, who saves his life twice in this film, by the way. Like, Short Round's not just there for looks. Like, if he doesn't break his chains there and burn Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones is possessed and Willie's dead.
Short Round is actually the hero.
He's a bit of a hero. He is the hero of this film. But once he burns Indiana Jones and he wakes up and he's like, "I'm okay, kid." And, they have the big fight. They punch everyone else. Mullah Ram disappears into his weird little hidey cubby hole in the floor, which is weird as shit.
That was amazing. He's laughing as he does it as well.
Like, you're so evil, man. But all those dudes on the other side of the lava pit then, as far as I can tell, they're just cheering. Like, they just seem to be into it. They're like, "Oh, dude, a fight." Like, it's all I've seen for fucking months are these goddamn executions. And now we've got like a bit of a fight going on. They all just seem to be like, there's no element of them trying to get across or them being upset. They're like, "Oh, dude, this is awesome."
They're loving that little Chinese kid doing the same weird half crane fly kick.
Oh, he does it loads. He does it loads. It seems to be, I'm a little surprised that's taking out, grown men. It's kind of like, again, Ewoks taking down stormtroopers with stones and shit like that. But yeah, he pulls it off.
Hey, his legs must be super strong, mate, honestly.
But yeah, supposedly, when that film was originally cut, and I'm jumping into facts over here, but while we're talking about it,
we've done facts all through this.
In the UK, they were going to they almost gave this an 18 rating based on that initial cut. And I was like, yeah, like Indy, like punch it, like slaps Short Round as well. So they were like, all right, we're not going to give it 18, we're giving it a 15. And in the end, they cut that stuff out to give it a PG. But because it was so dark, people complained about it. And between this and Gremlins, that led to the creation of PG-13. These films were still PG in the cinema, but they were later kind of like for VHS release and later DVDs, they were updated to PG-13. But yeah, because of films like this, because of this primarily and Gremlins, they're like, we've got to create a new rating.
Because it was too violent or too too mature for a PG, but not mature enough for an R rating.
Well, and people say this is the reason for this kind of almost like why we have like tonally so many similar blockbusters, because basically by creating these movies which are PG-13 and could be sold to both kids and grown-ups, that's essentially what we've been doing now, or Hollywood has been doing for the past 35 years, because 66 of the top 100 grossing movies of all time are PG-13.
Yeah.
And 9 of the 10 top grossing movies of all time are all PG-13, because they're like, we can have just enough in here to appeal to adults, but it's cool and exciting enough so kids want to see it because it's a bit violent. And we can say, oh, no, it's okay, you can take your kid, but you've got to go with an adult as well. So, yeah, like PG-13 has absolutely taken over the world now. It's crazy. And it's because of this. It all started with Temple of Doom.
Yep, Temple of Doom and Gremlins are to blame or to thank for them, I guess.
Yeah. But as dark as all this is, because this whole sequence, as we say, we're kind of skipping over it because we don't want to go into this constant barrage of, you know, kids being tortured and all this other stuff. Yeah. But again, there's that lovely scene between Indy and Short Round, because obviously he can remember the fact that when he was possessed, he's hit Short Round and threatened him. And there's that bit when the camera's on the level with Short Round, and you can just see Indy's waist up, and he puts his hat on.
Beautiful. It is.
Oh,
beautiful.
Yeah. And it's just the way he said, and he's such a good actor. What's his name from Goonies and stuff as well? What's his name? I want to get it right.
Kwan. Okay. Kwan.
And he's just like, just the way he leans on him. He's like, Indy, my friend. I was just like, I never found it so touching before. But I saw that scene. I was like, it's so sweet. But yeah. So obviously you have, I guess we'll get to the big, the fight scene then, because you get, after all that darkness, you do get then the next 30 minutes of this film is just, as we said, a quite literal roller coaster. And it starts with the catharsism of Indy going in and just whipping everyone's ass. Yeah. Although, in true Indy tradition, he has to fight a giant. Only I didn't know that giant is always British wrestler Pat Roach. Yep. So for those who don't know, Pat Roach is the big Nazi dude in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
He's the mechanic under the plane.
Yeah, who gets killed by the propellers.
Yeah.
I had no idea Pat Roach was putting on brownface to play the big thuggy thug in this film. I had no idea that was him. Did you know it was him?
I did a couple of years ago. That was one of the facts that I knew, but obviously, I was never going to know when I was watching this back then.
Yeah.
But it was going to be a thing that happens all the way through, because they did one in number 3 as well, but his scenes were cut.
Yeah, he's playing a giant Gestapo agent in that.
And then
it was cut.
He died before 2005 when Crystal Skull was made.
Yeah. But I just can't believe, it's such an 80s thing, isn't it? It's like, there was no thought about the fact that, we're browning somebody up. No. It was just like, this is a cool in-joke that in every movie, Indiana Jones is going to fight Pat Roach. And it's just what the fuck?
I did love that he's fighting this guy and then realize this guy is going to face a horrific death.
In every film. I wonder if he was going to face a horrific death in Last Crusade, because he gets the propeller death, he gets the roller death in this.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. As he's about to face the roller, you got Indy trying to save him, trying to keep him up.
Yeah. Because he knows it's really good. Too gross.
And then everybody just turning around as his blood just I guess splatters everywhere. What I did like was when he's getting his ass kicked by Pat Roach, Willie's holding Short Round. I gotta help Indy. No. Okay, go help Indy. And it just and he's like, it's like releasing a little rabid dog.
Well, that's the second time he saves Indy's life, because Indy is going to because the little the Maharaja, the possessed Maharaja, he's doing the voodoo doll thing where he's stabbing him in the back. And he's going to die. He's going to die. But it's only because Short Round gets to him first and punches him and burns him and stuff. It sounds so dark, but, saves him from the black soup of the Calimar. That Indy's able to fight back against Pat Roach, or Indian Pat Roach. I'm not sure. Does he have a name in this film, or is he just big thuggy guy?
Thuggy Pat Roach.
Thuggy Pat Roach, fair enough. But yeah. So, and then as we said, right from there, it is quite literally, they jump on a roller coaster. It's a minecart ride, but it's a fucking roller coaster.
It does have a name, Pat Roach. It's Chief God.
Chief God, of course. It's a bit boring, but fair enough. So yeah, you go straight into the minecart ride then. And I mean, it's great fun. Supposedly, one of the sound effects when they jump into the car is actually a lightsaber. And when they're choosing which route to go down, when, you know, Indy says shortcuts, they're color coded in line with lightsabers. So they're either red or blue, you know, as in, oh, this is the bad way, this is the good way. And I couldn't find anything for this, but there's when Willie, I think, is getting dropped into the lava earlier, there's a sound which sounds just like the trash compactor from Star Wars. And I'm not sure if that's definitely taken directly, but it sounds so much like it. But supposedly there's a whole bunch of audio cues for Star Wars in this film.
Yeah, well, one of the ones as well was meant to be another lightsaber one, was when the doors open.
Yeah.
Weird doors to drop you into.
Sorry, that's what I meant. That's what I meant was when. So there's a whole bunch, but yeah, as I said, this is like the 90-minute mark of the film, and after 4 minutes of being a horror film, it's just fun for the rest of the film. And
one of the things that made, like you're saying, fun, and that takes me straight. One of the things that I always have an audible giggle at is when they first get into the minecart. Willie's in there already, and she's about to be attacked. Oh no. Short Round's pushing her, and the thug comes up behind her. He lets the thug go over him, and then climbs up the thug to jump into the minecart. It was like a Three Stooges sequence that always makes me giggle.
Yeah. And as you say, there's quite a lot of. I mean, there's physical comedy in all the indie films, but I think this one in particular, maybe to offset the darker elements of the film, are actually pretty prevalent in this film.
That's as well. That scene is another example of Indiana Jones being school clever, but not really anything. Like, he won't listen to any other people. Like, Short knows exactly where to go. No, Indy, we got to go left. We got to go left.
He's just got that hubris, hasn't he?
Yeah, Indy knows best. And they would have got out a long time ago if he just wouldn't have just hit.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things, and I think that was part of the appeal of Indy right from the off, is that he is totally flawed. Like, he does all these amazing things, but he does get his ass kicked. He does he's super smart for sure, but he does make terrible decisions. He is a bit of an asshole sometimes. And like you said, you know, he doesn't just go around kicking everyone's ass. He gets whooped quite regularly in these films, which again, just adds to the fact that he's such an endearing, he's like the ultimate everyman. It's like who everyone wishes they could be, basically.
Yeah. Can we question how quick those minecarts are?
Oh, they're mega. Like, they're too quick. Let's be honest. They're dangerously quick, if anything. And, you know, where is this, like, again, all the goddamn lava? It just looks, it's a health and safety disaster, that whole area, let's be honest.
Well, even the fact that apparently that massive water butt that they released to flood out Indy, Short Round and Willie had, like, the equivalent of the River Nile in it.
There was a lot of water in there.
That was a lot of water in that water.
Although it's the only part. This is the only part of the film where I think the visuals get a little bit ropey. Like the
when
whole
they
film,
get to the cliff.
Well, even before that, like there's a lot of use of miniatures.
Yeah.
And some of it looks a bit dodgy. When he drops the water, you can see it's kind of this weird effect. But there's a bit where, in particular, where Short Round is stuck between two carts and they're trying to grab him, and they cut away, and it's clearly, firstly, a model, but also like he's super stretchy. Like all of a sudden, Short Round's arms look about 7 foot long. It's like one of those like 1 or 2 moments in the film which looks slightly dodgy. And as you say, the bit at the end, once they escape the cart ride, and they go out onto the edge of the cliff, some of the water effects there do look pretty ropey.
Not so much the water effects, but it's the overlaying effect where you've got
that's what I meant. Sorry,
the climbing up the cliff, and it's just the overlaying effect. Just it's dated. That one has dated quite a lot.
That has dated a bit, but it does lead directly into one of my favorite set pieces in movie history, and that is the bridge scene. And without question, I think is the most iconic Indy shot of all time, and Indy's never looked sexier. I mean, I am a heterosexual male, and very much in that, like, that's exactly how I wish I looked. When he's running across the bridge and he suddenly realizes Moller Arms on the other side. Yeah. They've used it in loads of like clips and stuff. But he's stopped and he's got his shirt is ripped.
He's got the one sleeve gone.
Yeah. He's got a sword in one hand, the whip in the other. And I was just like, that is a dude. What, like, how good does Harrison Ford look in that moment? It's kind of like, you know, how we said Arnie is peak Arnie in Predator. Like, he looks great. Like, Harrison Ford always looks great as Indiana Jones. But in that moment, I think that is peak Indy.
Well, that was
because on the bridge.
That, again, going into facts again, he realized he was going to be shirtless, or I guess semi-shirtless for a lot of this film. So he worked out a lot.
Oh, he's in good shape. Although, I could ask one question I forgot to mention earlier. So when he's topless for no reason, when he's possessed, and he's doing the whole Molaram thing, is he wearing like the tiniest sash of all fucking time? What is that thing? What is that little red rope thing?
At first, I thought that was his satchel or something, but
it's like a little girl's rope around it. It looks like somebody braided it for him.
But they've all got weird. What is it? It's like a general has 3 stars or 3 stripes or whatever it is, and then it's like they had a weird ranking system. Like Mola Ram had the entire of his head, top of his head painted red,
like the brownies.
Yeah,
and he hasn't got his badges yet, so he just has a string.
Mola Ram had the entire painted red. Then the Prime Minister had a massive, what looked like a target on his forehead. That was yeah. And then Indy has
like 2 little lines in his little sash thing.
And his little sash. So he's literally just joined the Beavers.
That's exactly what it looks like, and he just that's what they're going to attach his badges to. So you'll get there, but this is like, again, Molaram. Maybe you could make an argument that what's the name of the actor, Amrish Puri? He should be in the film a bit more, because I think he's physically imposing as well. He's got one of my favorite lines in that bit when it's like Indy's stuck in the middle of the bridge and there's people coming from both sides and he's making his threat. He's like, I'll get rid of the stones. And he's like, the stones will be found, Dr. Jones. You won't. It's just like, I love that bit. And then the bit like right after where he's speaking to Short Round in Chinese.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God, is he nuts? Nuts. You crazy. And it's just like.
But before that, Short Round says one of the best lines again. Hold on, lady. We go for a ride.
It's such a great scene where he cuts like the panic on everyone's face and the bridge falls. And then obviously, other than the fact that the thuggy troops, whatever you want to call them, are the worst shots in the world. Like, they must shoot 100 arrows at Indiana Jones, and they miss him with every single one. But other than that, like, that whole sequence totally holds up. It looks amazing.
It is. It is a great shot. I still, when it snaps, I still don't see how it's snapped in such a way that Indy was able to end up on the right side of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But again, there's a few things at the end of this where you just kind of go with it. It's like when they're climbing up the rope bridge at the end and he's caught there eventually with him and Molaram. And they've got the bag. And then Indy starts chanting some magic words which make the Shankara stones catch fire. I'm like, how does he know how to make the Shankara stones suddenly catch fire? How has he got a through line to Shiva to make the
he was invoking Shiva, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't know who's suddenly doing that, but I mean, he got away with it. But I guess there's a few bits at the end of every Indiana Jones film where you're like, well, this is pretty weird, but I guess we're going to just go with it. And you do. The reason, again, this will be the last time I promise you I mentioned Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. The ending of Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls makes much more sense than the ending of any other Indiana Jones film. Like, everyone had an issue with it, but I'm like, dude, I'm pretty sure aliens exist. Whereas I'm pretty sure there aren't 500-year-old nights or Shankara stones which catch fire if you invoke Shiva. But because these films are better films, you just go with it. Like, by the time you get to the 500-year-old night or you get to the power of Christ burning Nazis' faces off, it's ridiculous. But you're like, yep, I'm willing to go with that because they're just better films. And for its faults, and as I said, Temple of Doom isn't as good a film objectively as Raiders and Last Crusade. And that's not a criticism, because Last Crusade and Raiders of the Lost Ark are 2 of the greatest action films ever made without question. And the fact that this isn't quite as good, it's like, it's still a great film. It's just not quite as great.
Aside from the ending, what Raiders and Crusade have against this is more set pieces. Like, the ending of this is great. The cart ride, the bridge, it's all that. But there are much more giant action set pieces in the other 2 that people seem to but see, people seem to gravitate more towards. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I actually think this might have more set pieces, but the thing is, it's oddly paced because you have huge set pieces right at the start, the first 15 minutes of the film is essentially one long set piece, and the last 30 minutes is ostensibly one long. It's like set piece after set piece after. It's the fight scene, then it's the cart ride, then it's the bridge scene. At the start, it's the dance number, it's the chase, it's the plane scene, it's the fucking jumping out the plane. It's all one after another. But then you have this weird, as I said, that weird spell of like 50 minutes when there aren't really any set pieces, and it just gets dark and a bit like weird. And you don't get that in the other films. In the other films, the set pieces are more evenly spread out, so you're constantly getting them kind of litter bomb, carpet bomb throughout the film. Whereas here, they go heavy at the start, they go heavy at the end, but in the middle, it's a horror film for some weird reason. So I think there's just as, like, when I think of this film, I do think of it as being primarily set pieces, but there's that long period in the middle when you just got Mola Ram just being horrible and tearing out people's hearts.
What I love is this is basically 2 days as well, maybe 3 at a push.
Yeah, it all happens pretty quick, doesn't it?
Because you start the night in the plane, then that morning, then they meet the village, and then that night, actually, no, maybe 4 days, because that night, then the kid comes and tells them, look, I've just come from the pallet. Then that day they travel, and then the night, then they play poker.
Yeah.
So it's all right. So it's about 4. Yeah, okay. So it's about 3 or 4 days. Yeah.
The only question is how long they're traveling for. Like that whole sequence when they're traveling on which, by the way, some of the cinematography in that sequence when they're traveling by elephant to Pankot Palace is absolutely gorgeous. There's some really amazing shots there. But like you said, I think it is probably just 4 or 5 days.
The one shot, when they're traveling by the what's it called? I forgot the word elephants. Fucking hell. When they're traveling by the elephants and you
I think you said the Ganges. What's that thing? Oh, yeah, elephants.
Actually, I forgot the word elephant.
I've got how to spell who once. Don't worry about it.
And they see the palace. That shot, that whole spanning shot is fantastic.
Yeah. There's some really good stuff. Shot. Yeah. Well, it was odd because it reminded me, I watched Nomadland yesterday, which is a very, very different but very fantastic film. Yeah. And that I'm pretty sure that won for best cinematography, and of course there's a lot of kind of wide shots of kind of the United States, and it is gorgeous. But like I said, for a brief period, there's some really gorgeously shot scenes of India, or as we found out, actually Sri Lanka. But let them off. But I think that's pretty much. Obviously, it goes back to the village. The kids are there. Everyone's happy. Bunny, Davy. One of the kids is called Davy for some reason. But that's pretty much it. So I reckon, because otherwise this podcast is going to go on forever, we'll just wrap up the last of the facts and questions we had. So obviously we've mentioned quite a few of them. Robert Baum, he did let me know about the whole Dan Aykroyd thing, the fact that he supposedly went to Lucas and Spielberg on the Paramount lot and just said, can I be in the film? So they made a role for him. And it does actually take you out of the film bit, Dan Aykroyd randomly being in the film.
With the weirdest English accent ever as well.
Yeah, it is odd, yeah. All the 3 main characters are named after dogs. So Indy, famously named after George Lucas's husky, although that is referenced specifically in one of my favorite lines at the end of Last Crusade. You're named after the dog. Willie is named after Spielberg's Cocker Spaniel, and Short Round is named after the different screenwriters. It was William Hoyks and Gloria Katz. Their Shetland sheepdog was called Short Round. So there you go. So that's a bit of an odd one. And Scotty Pawley, another person who, he's the guy who mentioned the fact that Kathleen Kennedy was the dancer, so we've already covered that. And given his credit, Brian Allman was the guy who mentioned the whole PG-13 rating thing. So I just wanted to give them the shout because they're the one who mentioned it. What was the other thing I've got here? I think we've mentioned so many of these along the way.
I got a couple if you want me to go on.
Well, there's the 2 big ones. We mentioned it earlier. There's the Pat Roach in joke. So Pat Roach was supposed to fight Indy in every scene. So Pat Roach is the giant Sherpa. Then he's the Indian guy. That was quite bizarre. And the fact that he was the Gestapo agent. We've already done that. And the last one I've got is the big the one that was released a few years ago, the one nobody had any idea about because Spielberg had kept it to himself, was the Indy prank scene when he's being whipped.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I got. That is fantastic. Have you got it there?
I have, but you go with it, dude. Go with it. Yeah. I've been rabbiting on.
So when Indy gets whipped, there's a prank scene by the film crew where I said the name wrong. Who was it? Well, I said Bette Midler earlier on before we started filming.
Barbara Streisand.
Barbara Streisand. Why do I keep going to Bette Midler? Like, I've got this weird fetish in my mind. I want to see Bette Midler in a dominatrix.
Dominatrix outfit, yeah.
Barbara Streisand comes out in a dominatrix outfit, starts whipping Harrison Ford, saying things like, "This is for some of the random films that he did."
It was like, this is for making so much money in Star Wars, and this is for making the worst film I've ever seen, Hanover Street. But of all the bizarre references,
but Carrie Fisher comes in and saves him then. Like randomly,
and gives him a kiss.
Gives him a kiss and then runs away. It is the weirdest prank. Like they were all just hanging around.
Yeah, and you can find this on, like, this isn't one of those like hearsay things. The video is online, and it's really poor quality.
It is,
but it's worth watching.
As hell, but you can tell who it is. Yeah.
Yeah, you can clearly see Barbara Streisand in dominatrix gear whipping Indiana Jones, who's tied to a rock, before Carrie Fisher comes out of nowhere to protect him and give him a kiss. It's super strange. Apologies for all the waffling. I was going through this whole list of facts and questions, and I realized I covered pretty much all of them in the podcast. The only other one I've got is that in regards to the sequel, firstly, this was going to be called Temple of Death, as if Temple of Doom wasn't dark enough.
Yeah.
And this film was pitched on the back of actual scenes that were cut from the Raiders script. So
that's one of the facts I had.
Yeah, the cart ride and the jumping out the plane, they were both originally in the Raiders script. The only other suggestion that Lucas had, supposedly, was that the film was going to be set in a Scottish castle, a haunted Scottish castle. And the reason it got vetoed was because Spielberg thought it was too similar to 1982's Poltergeist, which he produced, which is crazy. Imagine Indy 2 set in a haunted Scottish castle. How bizarre.
Well, they wouldn't be... you could have the same kind of scene with Haggis, then, couldn't you? That they had with Monkey Brains and stuff. So
yeah, and obviously, he does the links to Scotland in the third film. Like he pretends to be Scottish when he goes to the castle in Last Crusade, and of course, his dad is Scottish. Let's make no mistakes. As always, Sean Connery makes absolutely zero attempt to hide his weird-ass Scottish accent.
Cover a lot when we inevitably do Highlander, but.
Oh, yeah, dude. I watched a bit of that recently. Fuck me, that film is bonkers. But we'll deal with that when we need to.
So I've only got a couple more. So I previously mentioned it, but George Lucas was a missionary in the background at the airport scene.
No, I didn't know that.
Only because you said it, I've got to bring it up. Mythbusters did do this. And
assholes, absolute assholes.
Yeah. And after 3 drops with their test dummy in a raft, they determined it's not possible to survive as shown in the film. So it's not. What else did I have?
Didn't need to hear that. Did not need to hear that.
Which is one of the reasons why I did it. You've already covered the diamond. The diamond was in the peacock's eye. Like I said, we covered most of these. Like, there's so many facts for this film. We've probably missed a lot.
Oh yeah. I at one point I just gave up. I kind of picked up the interesting ones. I'm like,
I think Steven Spielberg was actually a missionary as well with George Lucas in the same scene.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, cool. That's a cool little one. Well, we'll leave it at that then in terms of the facts. So the next one for us is video games. And this is the week. This is the week. If I was going to get anyone to do an Indiana Jones game, Naughty Dog would be the fucking company. Because let's be honest, Uncharted is a rip-off of Indiana Jones. People will tell you it's a Tomb Raider rip-off. But let's be clear. Tomb Raider ripped off Indiana Jones in the first place. Uncharted mechanically kind of rips off Tomb Raider. But tonally, it's all Indiana Jones. All the quips, the character. Nathan Drake is basically a young Indiana Jones.
But it's not even that. It's Naughty Dog do set pieces, and I'm going to go back to set pieces so well.
Oh, they really do, yeah.
Like you hit hidden temples, and it's not. Sorry, say that again.
I think maybe the greatest set piece in any video game, possibly ever, is the chase down the hill in Uncharted 4. When they're up in the town and it goes all the way down the hill and then there's a truck, the full works. And that is movie levels, like camera
that is
work
fantastic.
In that sequence. The only difference is you have an element of control. That sequence in particular, like, feels like it's pulled right out of an Indiana Jones film.
In Uncharted 2, when they destroy the Chintamani stone and they're trying to escape Shangri-La as everything's imploding, and they've got.
Is that 2?
That's 2, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because 3 was the Jinn, the random.
Oh yeah. I was thinking of that, and yeah.
But as they're trying to escape from that, as everything's imploding, and the hill is on it all becomes on a slide like Shangri-La. Just that is an ending to an Indiana Jones film. Do you know? Well, it kind of is like Last Crusade, where everything starts to collapse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
for me, it is what I am interested to see, and they're not really my favorite developer, but Bethesda are currently doing an Indiana Jones game.
Well, yeah, Bethesda are publishing. It's Machine Games who are developing.
It's Machine Games, sorry, is it? Bethesda?
Yeah. And no, I feel much the same way because Machine Games most famously have made the recent Wolfenstein games. Yeah. And it's interesting because those are technically fantastic games. And for such an odd, kind of character and for an odd story, these are all like 90s games. And he's quite a ridiculous character by default. They're actually, the stories are fantastic in the Wolfenstein games, but I'm not the biggest fan of the mechanics. I know a lot of people love the shooting in those games, but I'm not the biggest fan. But the one thing I will say is obviously this will be a different kind of game. Machine Games, all of their work is very polished.
Yeah.
And, with Bethesda, who they are, and obviously with Xbox behind them now, and this being Indiana Jones, you're like, this is their chance, ostensibly now, to make their own Uncharted, only for it to actually be Indiana Jones. I can't see anything other than millions thrown at this. This film, whatever else happens, this video game, will be polished as fuck. And it's the one thing, bizarre, there have been millions of Indiana Jones games, but there haven't actually been all that many good ones.
No. And the problem with the Indiana Jones does kill people. We've seen that. He fights people.
He totally kills people.
For the game, he is going to have to go on Nathan Drake level murder sprees.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just like, but would it be? I think rather than Nathan Drake, because it's Indiana Jones. Do you make it more melee heavy, like more punching rather than constant shooting?
Yeah, but I wonder how much you can go through if you're trying to make it now the story driven and everything, and especially if you're doing if you're setting it during again Nazi times or Russians or whoever he's going to be up against who are shooting at him. The Nazis are not going to fight him one-on-one, are they? They're going to be shooting at him, and he's just running at him with his whip. No,
he's gonna have a gun, but that is the one thing you'll say is, like you say, for the most part, it's like, how do you deal with the whole idea that it's like, Jesus Christ, Indiana Jones, or like it was Nathan Drake, has killed 400 people in this video game. If it is the Nazis, then it's the one perfect bad guy that you can kill 400 Nazis and nobody's going to think any less of you. It's like they are the bad guys. Like everybody agrees there's no redeeming features to the Nazis. If you go and kill 400 of them, nobody's going to be like, he killed a lot of Nazis. You'd be like, yeah, he killed a lot of Nazis. Yeah. So if it is the Nazis and he kills loads of them, then it's like, yeah, we'll let him off the hook. But I agree, it'll be interesting to see how they work, what the balance will be, action to story,
Who's the new ones who've done Tomb Raiders? Was this Square Enix?
Square Enix, yeah. I love them.
The new Tomb Raider games are fantastic. The third one...
It's Crystal... Sorry, before I forget.
Crystal
Square
Dream.
Enix developed... It's Crystal Dynamics who developed.
Crystal Dynamics, not Crystal Dream.
Yeah, Square Enix are the publishers.
The third one leaves a lot to be desired, but the first two games... Sorry?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Agree.
But the first two games are fantastic. And if you had an Indiana Jones set game for the first remake of the Tomb Raider, that would fit perfectly. So for me, and I appreciate we're saying that these publishers, these developers, suck eggs, do something you've already done, but put another character in it. But if I was going to see an Indiana Jones games, these are the kind of people that I want to see, because they got a proven track record that they've done it already.
Yeah, and I don't think people are going to see it as sucking eggs. If you tell somebody who's taken, let's be honest, they've told a great Indiana Jones story without an Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
And you tell them it's like, you've got the opportunity to make an actual Indiana Jones game with a massive budget. There's no way anybody's going to put their nose up and go, oh, I've already done this. It's Indiana Jones, man. You're going to want to do it. And as I said, there's the opportunity there to make the genuinely great Indiana Jones game, which has arguably never existed. I know some people make an argument for Fates of Atlantis. That was from the Lucas Games era when they were making all the point-and-click adventures.
Yeah.
The graphic adventure, which does have great writing and, great storytelling. But it's a point-and-click adventure. It's not really the traditional indie adventure you're thinking of. Personally, my favorite Indiana Jones game ever was, what's it called? Jesus Christ.
It was on the original. Jesus Christ. I haven't...
No, not Fate of Atlantis. It was the one on, why haven't I written this down? I wrote everything else down. The Tomb of the Emperor or something like that. It was on the original Xbox. And it was very much
I've never had an Xbox, so I've never played it.
Oh, well, it was very much a Tomb Raider rip-off kind of thing, but it was a surprisingly good 3D adventure. So I thought that one was good. There was, going right back to, a lot of people have fond memories of the first Raiders of the Lost Ark on the Atari 2600. That was the first game. There was The Infernal Machine. That was 99. I think that was like the first 3D indie game a lot of people liked. I think it later came to the N64. And a lot of people have time for the Lego Indiana Jones games, which were good, but struggled with the fact that unlike the Marvel games and the Star Wars games, is that Indiana Jones just doesn't have that depth of characters. Yeah. Like the whole point of the Lego games is you unlock these characters. And indie, once you get past the kind of top 10, 11 characters, like, it's a little bit kind of wishy-washy after that.
You won saying Staff of Kings, were you? Not that one.
No, that was for the Wii. It's I've got Empowers Tomb. It's because what I've done is autocorrect has fucked up the
Emperor's Tomb.
The Emperor's Tomb. I've got Empower's Tomb. Yeah. The Emperor's Tomb on the original Xbox, and you can actually download it on the Xbox now if you want to. It's there to buy, and it's, as I said, it's aged a bit now, but it's surprisingly solid. And I certainly enjoyed it when it was released in whatever it was, like fucking 2003, you know. But
well, there's a scene in this from the still I'm looking at where Indy is in his white suit in what looks like a rip-off of Club Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of that. Like, the storytelling is, like, pretty wishy-washy. It's more just a traditional adventure. And as I said, it's very much a game of its time. And the point is, for all the video games that's been, and, you know, as I said, some people, you know, PC fans and stuff in particular, make an argument for Fates of Atlantis. We're still waiting, I think, on the great Indiana Jones game. And I genuinely hope that between Bethesda and Xbox, that they give Machine Games every opportunity to make the Indiana Jones games, and most importantly, that they can get Harrison Ford in to voice the character, which would be amazing.
Well, it would be interesting to see. Yeah. Should we move on to the next section?
Yeah, soundtrack. So obviously, the big thing is the John Williams score, as always.
Yeah.
The only thing with that is, do you not find that it's so easy to mix up the Star Wars, Superman, and Indiana Jones themes? Like, if I hum one long enough, I can't move to the other one. If I start humming the Superman theme, I can't suddenly get my way back into the Indiana Jones theme.
But there's that game, because it's the three big ones. Mm-hmm. So the game is you can pick anyone to start with. Hum Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Then hum Superman.
Yeah.
And now try and do Star Wars. You could do 2 out of 3.
Is that genuinely a game, yeah?
Yeah. You won't be
able I was trying to do it in the shower yesterday. Yeah. I didn't know it was a game.
You won't be able to do all 3. You can pick one to start with and you say, do that one. Okay, now jump on to Indiana Jones. Okay, that's great. Now jump on to Superman.
What I found as well, I couldn't go back because I was humming Indiana Jones and I went into Superman. And then I was like, wait, what did the Indiana Jones theme go like again? And I just kept going back to Superman again. And I had to give myself a 10-minute break before I could go back to Indiana Jones. Yeah. It's bizarre. They're all amazing, but and I remember people gave him shit at the time I think it was 99. So it was just before Phantom Menace came out. Samuel L. Jackson was doing an interview and he was talking about how much he loves Star Wars. And he's like, oh, you know, you have the music and stuff. And he started doing the music and he was actually humming Indiana Jones rather than Star Wars. And people gave him shit. I'm like, that's so easy to do. That's so fucking easy to do.
My favorite thing to do when you're drinking, I say my favorite thing other than drinking, is to get people to play that game.
Oh, I'm totally going to do it. I'm totally going to do it.
Honestly, it's ridiculous.
I didn't know it was a game, but now that it is, I'm totally going to get it going. As you said, I think it's a great game because everyone knows the tunes, but going between is fucking solid.
Yeah.
But obviously, other than the great John Williams score, we've already mentioned it, anything goes.
Anything goes.
I have legitimately been humming that song all day. Again, not all the Chinese bits, just dun 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 dun. I drive my poor wife insane with this shit. She's like, I watched it with you. I'm not doing it. I was like, yeah, but I'm a fucking psycho. So that's my excuse, of course. But yeah, so the soundtrack to this is great as always. So that is that like the last thing is Legacy then. So
Legacy and then our new section then, yeah.
Oh, of course, we'll have to deal with that. So Legacy will be pretty quick. I mean, obviously, Indiana Jones 5 is on the way. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but you know, it would be great if they could close off the saga with a stronger film than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So I'm willing to go in with an open mind. And I'm excited.
They're going strong as well because you've got I was gonna do misjustice by saying Viggo Mortensen, but it's not Viggo Mortensen. It's Mads Mikkelsen. They got Mads
which
Mikkelsen,
is a great start. I love Mads Mikkelsen.
And who is the lady from Fleabag?
Oh, what the hell's her name? What the hell? I didn't write any of this down, but
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, exactly, and she's brilliant as well.
Yeah,
she's brilliant. But yeah, that's like a great start. If you tell me Phoebe Waller-Bridge and Mads Mikkelsen are in your film, I'm like, well, I don't even need to hear what the film is. I'm like, I'm on board. And then you tell me it's Indiana Jones, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally. And who's not there? Yeah,
yeah. What was his name? Mutt
will not be making an appearance, I can imagine, in Indiana Jones 5.
God. Thank God.
Yeah, in terms of legacy, I mean, you take those films out of the way. If you just look at it, like especially the first two films, like let's be clear, Last Crusade is one of the best sequels ever made, and for its faults, as I said, I'm a big fan, maybe more so than others. I would say that if you're just looking at the original trilogy, it's up there amongst the greatest trilogies of all time. Like, we're talking about the original Star Wars trilogy, and as I said, there's that comparison where Temple of Doom and Return of the Jedi have a lot of things in common. The only trilogy I can think which is more consistent, some people make an argument for Lord of the Rings, which I think is fair enough, and the only other one I can think of was Toy Story, where like the first three films are all fucking 5-star films. There's just no two ways about it. So other than maybe Lord of the Rings and Toy Story, the Toy Story trilogy, which are arguably the only three perfect trilogy movies in movie history.
I read something about Toy Story.
It's just below it.
I read something about Toy Story that's a bit harrowing.
What's that?
If one of the toys dies, the kid is still playing with it because he doesn't know. So all the friends have to see the kid playing with the toy's corpse.
I don't think that. I think they exist as long as they're loved. I think, maybe
that's
if you just stop. That is a little bit. Yeah. Although I don't think they're ever going to do anything more harrowing than at the end when you thought that. I mean, how the hell they tricked us into thinking they were actually going to kill them all off?
Oh, when they were going to burn them.
Yeah, like everyone was convinced. It's amazing, again, to go back to our point earlier about how you'll go. If the film is good enough, if the writing is good enough, you will fucking go with anything. I remember I was watching Paddington Bear, and the bit where Paddington loses his grip and he's going to fall down the chimney to his fiery death. Yeah. I remember, along with everyone else in the cinema, I gasped because I was like, not Paddington. You're not going to kill Paddington. But I was there with him, man. It's same with that. Like Toy Story 3, everybody's bawling their eyes out in the cinema because everyone's going to fucking kill off the entire cast. And for some reason, you believe it's going to happen. Unbelievable filmmaking. So yeah, other than that, there's the Young Indie film TV show. We don't really watch that, but obviously that was a big part of it. And let's be clear. Like above all else, the legacy of this film is probably the fact that Indiana Jones is the greatest cinematic character of all time. Like, I think you could make a strong argument for Indiana Jones being the greatest cinematic character of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only other one then, again, Harrison Ford had the privilege of playing would be Han Solo.
It's crazy. They're probably the top two.
Yeah.
They're probably the top. They're both in the top 5 for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah. So
he does it so well.
Yeah, so the legacy obviously is living strong. It's amazing the fact that, kind of like Back to the Future, stuff like that, where you're just like, people, I think, refuse to have this movie. Like, it's Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford himself has said, Indiana Jones dies with him. Like, Indiana Jones is Harrison Ford, and that's it. This isn't a James Bond thing. You're not going to recast him. It's like, you can have Indiana Jones stories, but this is it. This is Harrison Ford, and that's it.
And this film wasn't Harrison Ford's favourite. He's not a fan of this film.
I don't think any of them are a massive fan of this film, but I am, so it's fine.
So, all right, then. So let's go into our 2 questions then. Rating and would you recommend it? So, as it's your pick,
yep,
I'll go first.
No, go for it, dude.
Mate, I would give this again a 3. No, actually.
No, go with your gut feeling. Go with your gut.
I don't know whether I want to go 2.5 or 3.
You can go 2.5 if you want it.
I don't know. It's a 3. I think
it's a weak 3.
It is. Yeah, it's on a lower scale of a 3 for me. I mean, I'm not going to do it a disservice by saying it's any less than that. It's a 3 out of 5. Would I recommend it? No. it's not the Indiana Jones film I would recommend. And you've already covered it. And I know you've said, like, don't come at me with this whole problematic of it being India.
Come at me. I just have a counter argument.
But what I mean is, like, yeah, it's not the film I would recommend to people as the first Indiana Jones viewing.
Oh, no, I don't think you have to. I don't think that has to be the kind of the line.
But what we've always said, we would recommend these films for people who haven't seen them. So if this is the first Indiana Jones viewing for somebody,
no, I'm not saying
it wouldn't be Temple of Doom. I wouldn't recommend this film.
No, you would just say watch Indiana Jones. But would you, if they were like, oh, should I watch all three? Would you say watch 1 and 3?
No. I would say watch them, and I would say watch them in order of release.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree.
It does break up the whole hunting and Nazi thing, because if you watch 1 and 3 together, I'm sorry, but they are pretty much similar films.
Yeah, they feel of a piece, don't they? And part of that is probably a reaction to how this was perceived. You know, this being a very different film to the first one. It's like, let's go back to our bread and butter with the Nazis kind of thing. And it works because it's a great film. But
it is a fantastic film.
I agree, regardless of the fact that chronologically this is set before the first one. Absolutely watch the second. Like, it's a different kind of film. Personally, I would encourage people to see it. I think it totally stands up. As I said, a few dodgy special effects in the car scene aside, and obviously some people might be offended by some of the stuff. As I said, I find it very easy to. As I said, there's stuff in this for sure, but as I said, it was filmed in the 80s and it's set in the 30s. It's like, fucking, get over it. And I just think it's a really fun film, and it's so unique because even that dark stuff in the middle, especially the new cut, with that extra little bit of violence, I'm like, it feels unique. And Harrison Ford's great in it. It's got great set pieces, great musical numbers. I think it's a 4-star film, and I would recommend it to anyone.
Oh, well done. Nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So yeah, this last thing, but it's a new feature for us.
Yeah, so it's not going to happen every week. It's only if somebody comes after listening to one of our episodes. But we're gonna aptly call it. Essentially. Sorry.
And tells us we fucked up.
Yeah, we're going to aptly call this section "Shit We Missed." So I'm going to go. We had a message from John True, who just told us a couple of things that we missed that would be interesting to cover for Groundhog Day. So the one thing is, apparently an early draft was unearthed where it was explained that Phil was cursed by an ex-girlfriend. So that's the reason for the time loop. So that's
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because it's never explained in the film. So yeah, why not?
So that is good. I do like that idea, but I go back to my original thought from last week where I'm happy that there's no reason for the time.
No, I totally agree, 100%.
And there's a VR video game sequel was being made where you explore Punxsutawney as Phil and Rita's son.
Awesome.
So that's interesting.
I'm not sure how that would work as their son. I mean, because does it still have the time loop thing? I don't get it.
Well, you would expect it, especially if
you'd have to, wouldn't you? Because that's the whole
not your theory, but
or the film.
What you said last week about the fact that the next day was Rita's time loop.
Oh yeah, well that's what it was. Yeah. That's what it was.
So it could be some sort of family thing, maybe.
Yeah. Like they go back and they become cursed, whatever. Yeah.
Harold Ramis knew how bored and dickish Bill Murray would get making films, so he purposely filmed it backwards so that Murray would be enthusiastic when Connors is meant to be happier.
That's fantastic.
So that's good. You know your artist at that point. Well, he's going to be a dick at this part, so we'll do the dickish parts.
Well,
you know what I mean?
If that's true, it works so well because, and again, it comes back to that whole like how good Murray is in this film. Like he's such a dick in the start of this film. He's such an unlikable character, but by the end, he totally wins you over. Yeah. And part of that's the writing, but a big part of that is Bill Murray's performance. And I don't think many actors can pull that off in the space of 90 minutes, can go from genuinely horrible to like genuinely lovable, but he totally does it.
The last thing then was just a recommendation for a video game that we missed was Outer Wilds, which I hadn't heard of at this point. I know you had.
I played it, Just totally forgot about it.
I have actually downloaded it now, so ready to play. But Outer Wilds is a time loop game where you have to solve why the universe is exploding in 22-minute loops.
Yeah, it's really good.
Which is really very interesting to keep going for 22 minutes. Like, I don't think of a game that's done that. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works. And you said it was good anyway, and I know John.
Oh, it is a legitimately. I mean, it's a great premise, but it's a cracking game. I mean, it's obviously at the moment nowadays there are a lot of games, these roguelike games, where you keep reliving the same narrative essentially and keep trying to get further. But this is different. This is much closer to something like Groundhog Day. That kind of, obviously, it's a different concept, but in terms of the narrative progression, where you're not constantly getting new gears to go further, you're just like, you're given this 22 minutes. You either die or reach the 22 minutes, and you just keep finding out a bit more about the world or the universe as well. A little bit more until you finally figure it out. So yeah, it's really smartly constructed. Mechanically, it's great, and it's really well written as well. Fantastic game.
Well, I look forward to playing that. So that was shit we missed. So thanks, John, for that. And
cheers, John.
Actually leads us into the next. If you do have anything like that, please feel free to let us know on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We are at HeyYouGuys80s, or drop us an email at HeyYouGuys80s@gmail.com.
Yep.
The only thing left to do then before we say our goodbyes, mate, is for me to let you know what film you need to find for next week.
Yeah, go for it. Yep. Don't make it too obscure. At least, Jesus Christ.
I'm not gonna drop any hints. I'm just gonna say this is the first horror film I watched as a kid.
Oh, cool.
Horror / sci-fi thriller. I get there's a lot of it. So going back to my Kurt Russell, John Carpenter.
Love him.
Yeah, well, literally going back to my Kurt Russell, John Carpenter thing. We're gonna go for 1982's The Thing.
Awesome film. And as you say, that is probably quite apt. It's like, it's not quite a horror film. It is a horror film, but it's more than that. It's it's a film which almost defies kind of easy categorization, but it's a great film and movie. And I am looking forward to rewatching this, because after we did Big Trouble in Little China, when the first things that popped in my head, I was like, man, I'm gonna have to watch The Thing again.
And you do realize we're gonna have to cover Escape from New York at some point.
We have to. Yeah. Funnily enough, I've only seen half of it, but I watched half of it last week. It was on Film 4, and I'm like, I've never seen Escape from New York, which is insane.
Yeah, but you've seen Escape from LA, which is quite.
I've seen Escape from LA, which is insane. So I'm watching Escape from New York. It's mega 80s, but I'm super enjoying it. But first things first, The Thing next week. So
it's probably one of the first films that introduces the whole whodunit.
I'm not sure if it's the first film that
one of the first, like suspense horror, like not the first film in history, but you know what I mean. It's that kind of premise.
It does it in a very unique way. A film which has been aped in numerous movies since, and the setup is fantastic.
My last watching, which was several years ago now, but I still think and we'll talk about it more next week, obviously. But I still think
practical effects.
The effects hold up.
They do. The practical effects hold up, as well as Kurt Russell's beard and hair combo. So I'm looking forward to speaking about both next week. So thanks for joining us as always. If you can, try and watch The Thing before next week, and hopefully see you then. Cheers, guys.
Thanks again.
That's it. Bye bye.